Here's Brody Brazil.
You know, in recent months, there was a lot of low-key tension starting to build surrounding the Cincinnati Bengals and where they would continue playing football games. Their lease at Paycor Stadium was due to expire in about 12 months from right now, and there had been talks about potentially exploring other options and $1 billion or more that needed to be spent on this facility. They even considered putting a roof over it, like making Paycor Stadium a dome. But all of those ambitions, all of those ideas, they have reached an agreement, but it's a lot less in terms of the years and the dollar amounts and eventually what is about to get done. More on the toned down nature of this agreement later on in the takeaways. But first, some key points on what the Bengals and Hamilton County have agreed to. A 10-year lease. It's going to be a $470 million renovation. Again, down from about $1.2 billion. We heard that number floated out at the beginning of this calendar year. There are also options, right? This is a 10-year deal solid, but there are multi-year options past 10 years that could get the Bengals and Hamilton County up to 20 years of an agreement or a deal based on this one agreement right here, right now. But they do come, I think, at 2-year increments at a time. It's not 10 and then do you want to do another 10? It's 10 plus maybe 2 plus 2 plus 2, 5 times over. Bottom line is, there are some routes that this could go longer than 10 years, but it's only 10 years on the agreement initially. Hamilton County, their contributions of public subsidies will be capped at $350 million, but they're also requiring the team itself to chip in $120 million as part of that 470 total. So that's how we get to 470 on the math. The public subsidies from the county at 350 and the team spending $120 million on this stadium. There are some deeper details here of this agreement. The Bengals are also now going to start paying rent. $1 million a year for the first 3 years, I want to say, and then after that it goes up to $2 million a year. All of this is quite a 180 because the Bengals used to be receiving money. They used to be receiving game day fees and funds every time they played a game there from the county. So now the Bengals are actually paying the county instead of the county paying the Bengals to actually play there, if that makes sense. The Bengals, by the way, for their $120 million, they'll be using the NFL's G4 program to get a loan from the league to pay all these upgrades and renovations. So it's not even really coming out of the team's pocket. This is an asset that NFL teams have the ability to use. The league is kind of a financial backbone, so that's how the Bengals will be funding their share of it. There's also going to be a third party with Hamilton County and the team, an additional entity that's going to try and book Paycor Stadium for more events. Look, you're going to pump money into this facility. You don't just want it to work well for the Bengals. You want to make more revenue. You want to make this stadium a bit more enticing than it is right now. And from the county's perspective, like the way it used to go in terms of who was responsible for what, the county was on the hook for about 88% of upgrades and repairs and improvements to 12% from the team. Now, with this new deal, the county's share actually goes down to, 75-25. So the county's still on the hook for the majority, but to a lesser degree. And obviously the team is kicking in more here, but also now starting to pay rent. And we talk about Paycor Stadium. It's at that age, 25 years or so. It opened up in August of 2000, seats more than 65,000. And yes, I do realize what they're putting into it now costs more than its actual construction at the turn of the century. Think about that. Pumping in 470 versus the total construction cost was $455 million. But such is the nature of things, and you'd hope that this amount, like if you do $470 million over 10 years, that's $47 million a year. It doesn't seem entirely worth it for all the upgrades. You're hoping that this deal and this money and these improvements, they last a lot longer than just these 10 years. But again, costing now more to fix this place up and prepare it for the next 25 years versus what it cost to build it for the first 25. Yes, the Bengals lease, it ends. It was set to end next summer at the end of June, basically exactly a year from right now in 2026. Hamilton County owns the stadium. It is important to recognize this. Teams are now starting to pump in money, like the Bengals will be doing, to a stadium and a product that they don't actually own. Same thing's happening right now in Arizona with the Diamondbacks. They got some public subsidies, but they're also required to chip into a stadium, which is kind of like a rental car. They drive it, they take it where they want, but at the end of the day, somebody else owns it, and when the lease is done, the team doesn't get to own it. Here's that dome. They talked about putting on Paycor Stadium. They explored this at the end of 2024 and into the start of 2025, and I know that seems extravagant, and you're like, is that necessary? Would the football team want that? Would that be worth it at the price of like almost $1 billion? But Cincinnati doesn't really have a proper indoor venue, and if you really want to have that Taylor Swift concert in November and December, it's just not going to happen for sure outdoors in Ohio and during a winter there. So adding a roof was something that Hamilton County was considering as part of upgrades and renovations to the stadium. The county actually commissioned 2 different firms to study this proposed dome. The cost of just studying this was $140,000, but the price to add a roof was going to be anywhere between $903 million and $1.05 billion just to add the roof alone. So it seems like we've departed from all the grand, ambitious ideas and, the heavy spending ideas to do something a lot more sensible here right now. Bengals Vice President Troy Blackburn at one point, and there was some conflict here between the team and the county, and I don't bring this up to try and make this deal any less or try and downplay a 10-year lease. That's important for the Bengals to stay there. The two sides, the team and the county, they've agreed. But back in January 9th of 2025, the vice president of the Bengals wrote this letter to Hamilton County Administrator Jeff Aludo, and the vice president said, quote, "The county has not performed its obligations under the lease. With the stadium entering its final lease year, the situation stands very much at a precipice, and we hope progress can be made so the stadium remains an asset for the community." So on 2 fronts, number one, I'm glad that in half a year, they've gone from this to figuring something out that both sides can agree on, but it just goes to show you the tension, the drama, where things were. There were a lot of conflicts here between the team and the county. The team accused the county of being late on $15 million for stadium expenses and maintenance, and then the county accused the team of not getting approval, to sell away the naming rights. Like, wait, that wasn't yours to sell, but you sold it, and you're making money off of it. And the Bengals weren't happy with the speed of talks dating back to August of a couple years ago, and then the team was starting to charge the county again for those game day expenses. They kind of forgot about them for a while, and then they brought it back up like, hey, you owe us for every game we play here. And again, now the team is paying rent, going a total 180 on that spectrum. So things weren't great. And again, I say this because it just shows you how a deal got made, but it also shows you maybe why there's not a 30-year deal that's going on here. 10 years is that long enough to feel really secure about. There are some other factors in the state of Ohio. Over in Cleveland, the Browns, they have been working on and seemingly are about to receive an approval for $600 million from the state. Not the city, not the county, but the state of Ohio, right? And so then when the Bengals saw this, they were like, wait, Cincinnati, we're in Ohio also. We should also be getting some money from you, the state. Ohio had nothing for the Bengals, and then they were kind of shocked when asked, what are you doing for the other NFL team? They said, well, nothing. This has not been a part of our conversation. The Browns have been in these conversations, and the Bengals haven't. So I think the Bengals, to some degree, were a bit frustrated that things were happening so easily for the Browns on the other side of the state, but it wasn't happening for the Bengals. Also in the state of Ohio, there's something called the Modell Law, dealing with the former Browns owner, version 1 owner, Art Modell. When he moved the team, the state of Ohio right after that passed a law saying that sports teams can't leave cities once they start to receive public subsidies. Well, that law has now been tinkered with so that the Browns can actually move. I'll make a separate video on their situation out to the suburbs of Cleveland. They're not leaving the state. They're leaving Cleveland, leaving downtown Cleveland to go out to the suburbs. So this law has now been altered that you can leave a city, you just can't leave the state of Ohio. The Modell Law seemingly altered. So all of that going on, that would have influenced, right, the Cincinnati Bengals. For as much as they could have used relocation as a tactic, as a reality, as a negotiating, strategy here, they never really could do that entirely because of the Modell Law. I knew the stinger was coming. I gave it a beat. I gave it a pause. Here are my takeaways. A 10-year term. I mean, it feels nice, right? You're secure until the mid-2030s, but it's not forever. And in this day and age of 30-year mortgages, 30-year team leases, 30 years is kind of the default standard. And realistically, I don't know why we sit on 30 so much. Why not make it 50? Put the dollar amount right. Maybe 30 years feels safe enough, but also interesting enough. Like you don't know where life is going to be 30 years from now. But 10 years feels different for me. It kind of feels like kicking the can not 5 years down the road, but just a little bit farther than that, right? Are we just delaying problems and delaying conflicts? And is 470 for 10 years, is that a right figure? Should it have been 470 for 20 years? Does that feel more appropriate? Again, 470 divided by 10, $47 million a year for stadium upgrades, coming from mostly the county, but also from the team. The 10-year timeline, all right, this is really interesting if you're somebody from Cincinnati here. The 10-year timeline, it also corresponds with the end of the Reds lease at their stadium. So in about 10 or 11 years, you're going to have an interesting predicament where both the Reds and the Bengals are having their leases come up. And then it's going to be on Cincinnati to once again try and strike a new deal and try and figure out some new money. And the baseball team's going to say, we haven't asked for anything in a long time. And the football team's going to say, well, we just worked with you on a 10-year deal to get to this. So they're both going to be coming to the county, maybe the city, maybe the state by that point. I'm just saying here that things are going to get awfully interesting on two fronts at once in Cincinnati as it relates to the sports teams and what their asks might be. And what is the bandwidth of a city or a county or a state to take care of all these Cincinnati teams? Last thing I want to mention about Paycor Stadium, I mean, you'd like to think that $470 million of improvements and repairs and upgrades, that's nice, that's great. But you really have to make sure, I think, that the key point and the key takeaway of all this, you have to make the stadium pay you back somehow. Like start generating more. If you're going to pump something into it, what exactly are you going to get out of it? And I know a shiny new scoreboard or more flat screens or better concession stands or more bathrooms. I get it. But can the building actually produce more after you've invested more in it? That kind of seems like the main question for me. And a 10-year time span, is that even long enough to see that return? That third party who's taking over the scheduling of events and concerts and other, sports situations at this stadium, I hope they do a really good job because it seems like that's the only thing that would make this deal worthwhile for the county side is to get more use and more revenue out of this stadium. So that's the end of this video. A decade has been decided. I wish it were longer for Bengals fans. At least you have this. You can honestly put it out of your mind for 5 years. But in 5 years from now, basically 2030, it should definitely be part of your thought process, like how exactly now is this going to play out all over again? Let me know what you think about all this in the comment section below. Really appreciate that, as well as your thumbs up down there. You've made it to the end of this video, and that's great. Thumbs up helps me, the video, and the channel. Also, don't forget, hit that subscribe button, like right now. That way I definitely get to see you back here next time.